Pivot, a wellness project. Day 22, January 22nd, 2021. In times of self-reflection, in times of working on self-leadership, in times of dealing with fight, flight, or freeze, um, it's really important for us to recognize that even though there's all of these systemic issues that are impacting our lives, that we can still touch the system. Touching the system is a concept that I think is very valuable in terms of our ability to look at how we can be influencers in other people's lives. You know, these days, when we use the context of influencers, it's this in the social media world in which I acknowledge that I'm using right now. Um, we tend to approach it from skimming the surface and seeing if we can dive in deeper. People in the touching the system in terms of the from the influencer perspective, they want to be showing you their superpowers. They want to help you by providing you with love, as opposed to providing you with a world that is surrounded by what we would call evil. So, in acknowledging that and in respect and honoring that, I think that it's really important to recognize that although all of us don't bring ourselves to social media in the ways that the influencers do, we are all capable of touching the system. So how do we do that? The first thing is that you recognize that there's ways for all of us to nudge incremental changes. We do it. We do it with our friends. We do it with our partners. We do it with our in our working lives. We offer suggestions, and sometimes we offer them again and again, and subtly in other ways. And you talk to other people about it, and before you know it, you've touched the system enough that there's a little bit of a social fiber of change that starts happening. And it's not that you lay a heavy hand on it. You just end up being a little bit of an influencer. Other ways that you do it is number two. You alter the environment for yourself first, and we talked about this a lot in terms of reducing stressors in your life by increasing positive stressors in your life, so that you can employ a vision of yourself moving forward, and then as a result, that vision, changing the environment helps change you. So altering the environment can stimulate change gradually. And in terms of the third, recognize that life is not this thing where you have to move linearly all of the time. This concept of moving linearly up a ladder and growing and expanding and whatnot, it doesn't necessarily have to always land. There are people who are great at that. But again, that's not all people. Embrace the possibility of making a lateral shift, right? And for those of you who this will land for, you set out in life sometimes in terms of a direction and a goal that you wanted to end up taking on in life. And sometimes you move sideways, you pivot, and then suddenly the thing that fulfills you even more and fills your cup and fills your soul food is actually something that you didn't vision for yourself when you were younger or setting out or starting out in your career. But what it did was it presented you with the opportunity for you to vision and see influencers, mentors, experiences that you could possibly navigate to in the choose your own adventure on this big blue dot called your life. And what that introduces is this fourth concept. Life has this wonderful way of moving in spirals. So sometimes we move forward and upwards, and then sometimes we have to dip back. Sometimes we move forward and upwards even more, and then we dip back. And sometimes we're funneling up this thing that goes wider, and sometimes it gets narrower. And then within that, another way of looking at it is sometimes life is circles, concentric circles, where you're in the center of the universe, and then all of a sudden, wow, there's a bigger circle outside of that, and your universe expands. And there's a bigger circle outside of that, and your universe expands. And that can change from decade to decade as the story of your life, in the narrative that you've created, presents itself to you and helps pull you forward into the future. So this linear thing, yeah, maybe it's one option of many options that you can attend to. So in terms of the fifth one, and this is the one that's most critical, and I think is the one that I cherish and I've learned from very wise teachers throughout the years. If there's energy coming your way that you love, pour more energy into it and that love will grow. And if there's energy that's pouring into your direction that you don't love, develop a radical acceptance of that, right? And in radically accepting it, that it's a thing that is a part of your life right now, recognize that it's a thing that you don't necessarily even have to change. All you have to do is acknowledge it for what it is in terms of objectifying it, and be able to make decisions in changing your narrative in terms of writing your story to move forward. And with that, if you are empowered with these 5 simple things that I acknowledge, of many other things that you could acknowledge in this moment, in honoring that, I think that you could recognize that there's ways that when you go through your life with the people in your life and you try and empower yourself within that, you can be an influencer as well, where in spreading that kind of love, pouring that kind of energy back into the system, you can touch the system and nudge it in a different direction. So in a world where all of this craziness is happening right now, and all of this social change is happening right now, and all of this stress of media that's going on in the world, a great teacher of mine, and this is not mine, told me that all you have to do to be an influencer in this world is recognize that the systems that are at play in your life, if you start viewing them instead of these horrendous forces and view them as just a little soap bubble that a kid blows out of that little thing to that they chase. Once there's a soap bubble floating in air, you, as a practitioner of your life on this big blue dot, all you have to do is just touch the bubble or blow at the bubble and nudge it a little bit in a different direction.